Welcome to the Bean Pod, a podcast about decentralized finance and the Beanstalk protocol. I'm your host, Rex. Before we get started, we always want to remind everyone that on this podcast, we are very optimistic about decentralized finance in general and Beanstalk in particular. With that being said, 3 things. First, always do your own research before you invest in anything, especially what we talk about here on the show. Second, while you're doing that research, try to find as many well-developed, opposing viewpoints as possible to get the best overall picture. And third, never ever invest money that you can't afford to lose or at least be without for a while. And with that, on with the show. Okay, so through our tour of the farm, we talked about beans, we've talked about the field, we've talked about the silo, and now we're at a spot where we can start to look to the future.
Is that a part on the farm, Rex? How do we get to the future? How do we go to the future, Rex? Can you take us there?
I'm just gazing out onto the horizon and seeing just a beautiful spring evening where there's no snow anymore because I'm sick of snow. And we can just wax eloquent about what's to come.
Well, I think point taken. We'll have to update the winter theme on the website. You're right. It is middle March. So with that in mind, we'll let the UI team, the UX team know we got to get cracking on that. But jokes aside, yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff happening in the not too distant future. And so BIP 12 was really the first step in generalizing Beanstalk. So what does that mean? Well, Beanstalk, when it was originally implemented, was really designed and coded in a way to facilitate the proof of concept. Given the vast difficulty that protocols have had bootstrapping a non-collateralized stablecoin, it made sense to really focus on just convincing people that the model worked, building out the core model, writing a white paper that focused exclusively on the peg maintenance model and didn't have so many bells, the protocol didn't have so many bells and whistles. However, now that Beanstalk is over 7 months old and is doing a really good job of peg maintenance, now there's the opportunity to focus on taking that proof of concept and taking all of these benefits we've described from going from a collateralized model to a credit-based model and answer the question, well, how can you leverage that to the max? How can you leverage composability to the max in this case? And so Beanstalk and the silo, but Beanstalk as a whole, is being generalized to facilitate really seamless interaction with Beanstalk across all of DeFi effectively. So what does that mean? So BIP 12 was the first step in this direction. It facilitated deposits into the silo based on a whitelist. Originally, you could only deposit beans and LP tokens for the Bean ETH Uniswap V2 pool. But now you can deposit Bean 3 curve LP tokens, and via BIP, you could add other assets to that list as well. And beyond that, when Beanstalk was launched, you were able to go from Ethereum into the field where Beanstalk would take the Ethereum, buy beans on your behalf, and lend beans to Beanstalk and then return you the pods, or take your beans, buy them into beans, and then deposit them in the silo, or buy half of it with beans, add LP, then deposit the LP tokens in the silo. You could do all of that in a single transaction. That ability is going to be generalized to be even more modular. So you'll be able to start from arbitrary assets basically across DeFi and then end up in arbitrary positions within Beanstalk. So in the field, in the silo, pick your asset allocation within the silo. And more than that, Beanstalk and the Bean farm are going to be generalized so that in your transactions with Beanstalk, you can actually also interact with other protocols as well. So let's take the example of I'm currently holding beans in my wallet, or maybe they're wrapped within Beanstalk because you don't necessarily ever need to take delivery from Beanstalk on any of your assets. You'll be able to take your beans, uh, sell your beans into Ethereum, take that ETH, deposit it in a liquidity trove, mint LUSD against your trove, sell that LUSD into beans, and then sow those beans in the field, for example. Or take that LUSD, add it to a theoretical LUSD bean uh, liquidity pool, and then deposit those LP tokens in the silo. And then also, if stock is liquid and you can roll over your stock, take the stock and roll over the stock potentially all in the same transaction. Now, the stock liquidity might be a little bit more tricky, so don't quote me on that one. But certainly, you'll be able to go from arbitrary assets within Beanstalk, leverage things like liquidity troves or DAI CDPs within your transaction, and then uh, add those assets to Beanstalk in arbitrary fashion. So that's the hope, is to really make Beanstalk a core way that everyone interacts with DeFi because of how simple, cost effective, and economically efficient it is.
Yeah, so it sounds like what you end up with is on one side, you've got a stable coin that has significant utility, that is stable and can be used for transactions and common monetary purposes. And on the other side, you've got this increasingly robust investment platform.
Not even an investment platform, just an interface across DeFi where you can do arbitrary things. Like if you think about, right, if anything, we go back to the Apple idea we were talking about before, where you have this marriage between the iPhone and the iOS software that facilitates incredible things. In the case of Beanstalk, you have the Bean, which has high utility. And then you also have Beanstalk, the software that facilitates incredible things on top of Bean. And so that's where that's where things get potentially excited. And as developers of Beanstalk, the way we're thinking about development is just how can we make it as simple and seamless as possible to build on top of Beanstalk and on top of Bean, and to use Beanstalk to do so.
Yeah, that's a great point because as we have talks inside of the community team, I mean, we're talking about building out our metaverse team, and we're talking about gamification that wouldn't be a specific investment, but it's a utility component where folks could, maybe have something like a Settlers of Catan experience, and using just the utility of that, which is built on top of the Beanstalk platform, and find a whole new way to interact with each other and to have fun, and not even an investment component, but still just a new type of utility. And as again, as we look out onto the spring setting sun across the field at the farm, it's hard not to see all those different opportunities out on the horizon.
We would not disagree with that, and so very excited to be a part of this exciting movement, and very excited to be surrounded by so many awesome, self-motivated individuals like yourself, Rex, who are have found Beanstalk and now want to make it their own and make its success their success, and uh, that's that's the name of the game here. So, want everyone to be well aligned and uh, in it in it for themselves in a way that benefits everybody, and that's the magic here.
Yep, completely agreed. Thank you again, Publius. Always appreciate your time. I think we're going to have you come back in and visit as more improvements are made to the protocol, to talk us through some of the things that are going on. And in between now and then, we're going to look outwards and find guests that'll be able to come in and talk with us a little bit about their involvement with the project or other projects that Beanstalk is interacting with, and just find new ways to grow our community and keep learning from each other. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us, Rex. Happy to come back anytime.